Hello, so today is going to be a patch review. So this is patch 14.19 that's coming out tomorrow. So hopefully this comes at an opportune time. It was posted sometime later yesterday, so I didn't have time to actually review it yesterday. I took a quick glimpse of it, and we're going to go over it. I'm going to give my opinions, and this is for the people that subscribe to this channel. I always do the patch reviews so that you guys are up to date on what the changes are, as well as giving my take based on what I think from my own gameplay, what the changes mean. This is from Mortdog's YouTube channel, so by all means, please go like and subscribe and support Mortdog. Mortdog is a TFT dev who is very public in giving information about the patches, as well as being like a front-face figure for the scene. So please make sure to go subscribe. These slides are taken directly from his YouTube video, so please make sure to subscribe and support that video as well. He gives his own opinion and his own take while he explains the changes and why there's being changes, so you can also watch that perspective if you want to see it from the actual dev themselves. Anyways, without much further ado, let's get started on it. So in terms of traits, so Fairy, the healing and the shielding power is going to drop from 35% to 25%. The Queen healing is going to drop from 15% to 12%. This is to address the big problem that Fairy became, in the meta, one of the go-to hard force comps, the most broken thing. If you want to climb this set, or this patch right now, even if it's still the last day of the patch, basically, like, you know, the strategy basically devolves down into, are you playing Fairy in majority of your games? If you're not playing Fairy in majority of games, you're doing something wrong, because you're so stable with Rakan 1 and Kalista 1 that a lot of the times, even if you're not getting your top 4, there's a very low chance that you're going 8th. You're usually finishing like 5th, even if you're hard contested. It's just very, very strong. Fairy was ridiculous at the start of the set. At the start of the patch. And what ended up happening was everybody kind of thought it was because of Fairy +1 and Royal Guard and those type of augments. And then slowly over time, like especially as like challenger players started to like play a lot more, and like they're obviously better than us that are not as good, it eventually came to be known that no, it was just Kalista and Rakan and the Fairy Crown. The 7 Fairy actually didn't do that much. Fairy Crown doesn't do that much. Playing around Emblem didn't do that much. It was mostly just playing Fairy, and those things did well in the stats because they helped you to force towards playing Kalista. I think that this change will be really good for the game. I don't know, it's hard to conceptualize what the most broken part of it was, because like there's lots of different moving parts to Fairy that were really, really good. From the state that it was right now, like our Rakan 1 Kalista 1 was winning a lot of boards and winning a lot of fights. I feel like if you're uncontested, Fairy will still be playable. It just won't be degenerate now, which is very nice. So we'll see how it works out. I think it's a great change. Obviously, I think it's very well needed. So, you know, we'll see how it goes from there. Let me just get my inking set up right 1 second. Frost. So they're buffing 9 Frost. Now, if you've been playing the game, 9 Frost is really fucking bad. It's very RNG-ish. So instead of what they're doing is they're making the explosion damage less, and they're buffing the stats that it gives the actual units by a little bit. I think that's a good change. Basically, before, it was kind of like if your explosions don't hit the enemy carry, you can lose very easily with 9 Frost. It was pretty weak comparatively for a 2-spat trait. I think out of all the 2-spat traits, it was the worst one. I feel like 9 Frost in some cases was worse than 8 Witchcraft, which is even more ridiculous because 8 Witchcraft obviously is not 9 traits, an 8 trait. But obviously, something had to be changed a little bit, so these are good changes as well. So that's just addressing that issue. Honeymancy. So Honeymancy, they're reducing the B damage on the 3 Honeymancy, and they're buffing it on the 6 Honeymancy. I would have liked to see a little bit more of a change to the middle Honeymancy, because that's the one that you normally play as 5 Honeymancy when you're playing the reroll lines. But we'll see if they address the units in particular. I felt like Honeymancy was just very annoying. I felt like it was fine before because there was a lot of enabling augments for it. Now it kind of feels like you can just always play Honeymancy, which I think is what they wanted, but there's so many like Exodia augments for it because they take Ornn artifacts really well. They take there's Beast Friends, there's 2 Tanky, there's Zap Attack, there's New Hero, which that one is, you know, I'm not gonna bitch about that because that's not as strong. But there's so many of them that are good that I feel like Honeymancy is a trait now because it's good on its own. If you hit like a really good augment with it, it becomes like this ridiculous board. And I don't like that aspect of the game that much, but that's me personally. Obviously, to each their own. So I think it's nice that they're at least addressing the lower levels of Honeymancy to make it so it's not as like ridiculous in your early game. Maybe you don't streak as hard, and that helps out a little bit. So we'll see what the changes do. Mage, they're buffing 10 Mage. I've never played it. I think it needs like 3 spats now. It's very difficult, so very difficult to hit, so it has to be like ridiculous, right? If it's a 10 trait with 3 emblems, you have to treat this the same way as like Eldrich. So buffing this to an instant win is probably warranted and makes sense, right? Sugarcraft, they're doing a small buff to... I don't know how small of a buff this is. It's giving HP, right? So 100 HP for 6 Sugarcraft. 50 HP is a huge change when you are dealing with a melee unit. It's a pretty substantial change because, like, you know, scaling with items, its base HP, like stuff like that, it can really like stockpile a lot. This is only as good as Gwen is as good, is what I think. Obviously Gwen is in a weird spot. We'll talk about Gwen when we get to it. But 6 Sugarcraft is really held back by the fact that Gwen is a little bit awkward to play around. So we'll see how it actually works. 50 HP is quite a bit. It's a good amount. It's 50 HP on all 6 of them. So, you know, even your Rumble gets a little bit of HP. So it could add up. It could add up. That's all I'll say. It's not a huge buff, but it's not like nothing. It's something, right? Which is good. Warrior. 4-piece, Damage Amp, and Omnivamp. They're upping the 4-piece to try and make Warrior a bit more meta. Warrior kind of was okay at a certain point, and I was kind of like liking myself to it. Warrior is the type of comp that I usually like to play. It's a very flexible comp because you have an AD carry in the form of Fiora, you have an AP carry in the form of Gwen, you have reroll lines as well, so if you don't hit Fiora, you have good item holders in a worst case scenario in the form of Akali and Nyla, right? And also Katarina. Like, there's lots of different options for itemizing your different units. The problem with Warrior is just that the other boards are just better in a lot of cases, and 4 Warrior didn't really fit in really well. The Damage Amp and Omnivamp, 2% doesn't seem like a lot to me, but I think it's going to be a lot better. So maybe now, especially if they deal with some of the other problematic 4-cost boards, for example, Kalista, we might see a new 4-cost board come into the meta, which is just like the 4 Warrior setup, or Warrior with Preserver, or Warrior with Bastion. These are all viable options, and it's something that, you know, people have been trying to get to work, and it just hasn't been pulling off since the start of the patch. The problem is Nyla and Akali got nerfed so much. We'll see if they're changed at all. Because they both got nerfed so much, this whole line is very unstable. And I'm pretty sure Katarina's going to get nerfed at one point. If it's not this patch, it's next patch. So there's a little bit of shakiness that you're reliant on, like Gwen Fiora. And then it's tied to how good Gwen is, right? Because Gwen hasn't been in a good spot this patch. Eldrich. So they're buffing the AD for the 3-piece. So this is 3 Eldrich. They're also like buffing the entire scaling of it. And then like 7-piece and 5-piece are getting lots of buffs. This is just a solid Eldritch sweep of a buff. I think Eldritch is kind of weird. It's very reliant on Briar. I think if you can play 7 Eldritch with a Briar, a lot of times you're in a good spot. Like, I've played games where I've had really, really strong boards, and I've had trouble chewing through like a, you know, 7 Eldritch setup if you have like Briar and everybody upgraded and something like that. I think that these buffs are going to make it so it's a little bit stronger in terms of like everything. The Eldritch Beast, I mean, and the scaling of it. The scaling does seem substantial, right? Especially in these late game scalings, you can see like even the 5-piece is getting like a substantial buff, right? In terms of your HP scaling. The whole point of Eldritch is that it's like really strong when you have like an extra unit on your board. So having this extra unit with more HP and also a little bit more damage if you're playing around 7, I think Eldritch might be a little bit more viable. The problem is just the units themselves. Like, Nami doesn't do that much damage, so you're not carrying Nami. Syndra has been in a bad spot because she was broken at the beginning, and then they nerfed her to Oblivion, which was warranted, so, you know, it's like that. If there's some line that you can play, I think the best line is playing around Karma. So we'll see if they change Karma at all. If you looked in the stats before, even on this patch, earlier on, before people were just abusing Fairy and Fairy being like really difficult to deal with, early in the patch when a lot of other lines were trying to be played, like Sugarcraft was like really, really good in the stats at the beginning of the patch. Certain Varus combos were really, really good. You'll notice that 7 Eldritch with Eldritch Emblem on Karma was actually pretty good in the stats as well. So I expect that to be the line that you usually play this with a +1, and then you fit in Karma, and you play 7 Eldritch, and then you play around late game, capping out your board around a Briar because the Briar Elise synergy. So I expect that to be more relevant now. It was something that was already a little bit relevant. Very niche line that could have been played. So, you know, we'll see how it works out. It might be more playable, right? It all comes down to like if the gatekeeping comps are out of the way, then some of these other comps become really, really powerful. Now we're going on to champ buffs and champ changes. So they're buffing Seraphine. These buffs seem like a lot for 3-star Seraphine. So I'm not too concerned about 1 and 2-star Seraphine. It doesn't look like that much. It's okay, but the spell damage on 3 Seraphine is up by like almost 50. That's a lot, right? That's like a 10% buff, right? 10% more damage, basically. That's like a whole ass augment, right? That's insane. That's very, very strong. You'll also see that Soraka is getting a mana buff. Now, I don't know if this is gonna make Soraka Seraphine reroll a thing. It was a thing before, so sorry, it was never a thing, but it's something that people try to play, and it's usually like you just go 5th because it's just not enough to like push that next level. This is a little bit scary. When I look at it, I don't like 1 cost being buffed because I hate 1 cost rerolls. I think that if there's more than one viable 1 cost reroll, it pressures the lobby and it removes a lot of the late game play that you can have with a lot of 4 cost and 5 cost boards. So for example, if Seraphine is meta, that's a 1 cost reroller. Ziggs is getting nerfed, but let's say Ziggs is rerollable, Seraphine is rerollable. On this page, there's no Ashe, right? It's an alphabetical order. It's not alphabetical order. Yeah, it's an alphabetical order. There's no Ashe nerfs, right? So if Ashe, Seraphine, and Ziggs are rerollable, that's 3 spots in your lobby that are going to be very, very fast. Lobby tempo is going to be very, very fast. Something like Sugarcraft, right? People have been like, you know, I am somebody who really wants Sugarcraft to be good because that's like the type of like, you know, late game scaling, early game preserve HP, you know, live really long and then like cap out your board with like a scaling comp. This is like a type of board that I have a lot of fun with. This is like the type of thing where I'm playing TFT, and if I'm hard forcing something, hard forcing this is like the most fun for me, and I find the most enjoyment. I've said this many other patch reviews. If the game has a lot of 1 cost rerolls, and it makes the lobby tempo be really fast because you won't be able to preserve HP really well. You're going to have to roll down really hard. You won't have time to scale. It makes things like Sugarcraft like completely impossible to play, right? And it's like that with a lot of other comps that have a similar type of cadence, right? There's a lot of comps that you want to like cap out your board really late game, or you want to survive and play like towards a later game board. The more 1 cost rerolls and 2 cost rerolls there are, the faster the lobby goes because everybody's going to spike really hard on stage 3, and then you have very few outs, right? You have to either pick like the strongest 4 cost board that you for sure cap out around, or you have to also play reroll. And there's not really many options of playing like a board where you can meander and play flex and make it work. It kind of kills that aspect of the game a little bit. But obviously that's my opinion. Maybe you love Seraphine. Maybe Seraphine's your favorite unit. If it's your favorite unit, by all means say in the comments it's your favorite unit and you're excited for Seraphine buffs, and go for it. Soraka does need a buff though. Soraka fucking sucks, so anything to change Soraka would be great. So, you know, whatever. I'm not too upset about Soraka changes. It's just Seraphine that seems a bit weird to me. Twitch, they're just changing the cast, the name. This is for like, you know, when you look at it and you see what items that you should put on the unit. It's just to make it a little bit more cohesive with what the unit actually wants as items. So that's good. This is good for people who are learning the game so that you have better information so you can figure the game out a little bit better. And then Ziggs has been really, really strong and really annoying. So they're nerfing him. It's not that massive, I would say. It's 15% here and it's around 10% here for the AoE and the spell damage. I think that Ziggs was so good with such a variety of items that I still think the line's going to be viable, right? 5 Honeymancy wasn't nerfed. It was only 3 Honeymancy. It just might be that you need a good spot for Ziggs now. So if you don't have like blue buff plus a really solid AP item, or if you don't have Ornn artifacts, or if you don't have a really good setup for Ziggs Blitzcrank, you won't be able to stabilize really hard. It's more like, it might just make it more specific, but it's definitely not dead, right? Ziggs will still be viable. It's just you have to have a better spot for it, in my opinion. Because just the small damage nerfs just means that you have to have better items on him. You can't just put any items on him, if that makes sense. And then, of course, being a 1 cost reroll, you're committing really early. So that's what I mean. Your spot has to be really good. You can't just assume that you're going to get a bunch of tiers and a bunch of rods later. You have to start with the rods and start with the tiers, and then you can commit to Ziggs. So I think it's a good change. It doesn't kill the unit, so if you're an enjoyer of Ziggs, should still be around. Now we're going for 2 cost buffs. So once again, buffing low cost units, I'm not huge on this, but one thing that I want to say is that warriors are getting buffed, and then they're buffing 3-star Akali. 3-star Nyla, and then they're also buffing Akali I think later they also said they fixed the bug. If you didn't know, Akali had a bug where sometimes she like wouldn't attack properly if you put a Rudan's on her or other items. They were still okay on her. It was just like a bit RNG, I think. It was like weird. It's hard to describe, but they fixed some bugs with Akali as well. So now she might be a little bit more flexible, and maybe you don't grief your items by accident if you don't know about the bugs that Akali has. So this is going to make warriors a lot more viable. Ahri reroll wasn't really a thing anymore since they did the rework, so they're buffing it not that much though, just a little bit in terms of the Foxfire damage. So that's like the extra damage she gets. Now she has the little Foxfires around her, so that's interesting. So we can keep an eye out and see if Ahri reroll becomes something again, because the other aspects of her the Ahri board hasn't really changed that much. Like Ryze hasn't changed all too much, and Zoe hasn't changed all too much. They're still like early game strong boards, so if you can play like that one cost Zoe reroll with Ahri could still maybe be a thing. We'll see. It just takes some work because she got reworked a lot, so we have to figure out what the new items are, I think. Syndra, they're buffing Syndra because she's been ass. This is a substantial buff. It's like 30% spell damage. Like I don't know. I think Syndra meta, especially with the changes to Eldrich. I feel like if you have an Eldrich +1, you can play Syndra reroll with Karma, and it'll actually be very, very strong. Of course, I wouldn't recommend playing Syndra unless you have a good Syndra spot. Syndra scales, so you want to start with Syndra, right? You want to start with a Syndra early, and then you also want to have that Syndra scaling, so you want to have good items for her, right? You want to have Shojin, Nashers, or some sort of attack speed item on her, because even though they nerfed like her whole cast time and everything, you want to make sure that if you're committing to Syndra, if you're trying Syndra reroll, make sure your spot's good for it. You can't just like commit to it in the mid game, because then your Syndra will be too far behind and she won't do like the insane damage that you want her to do late game, even with these changes, right? Well, 1 second, sorry, I messed up my pointer. Champs, so they're doing a 5 AD nerf to Ezreal. Now 5 AD doesn't sound like much, but it is a base AD change. 5 AD I've come to known as being a very substantial change on a lot of these champs, so I expect Ezreal to be a little bit nerfed. This makes it really happy for me a little bit, because I felt like Ezreal is kind of slightly annoying towards the end of the patch. But I think this is a warranted change. I don't think Ezreal is that strong, but I think it's just 3-star Ezreal that turns into a problem. So hopefully that's a little bit better. Likewise, there's making a large change to the 1 and 2-star versions of Hecarim in terms of the AD ability cleave. Now, Hecarim was kind of weird, because Hecarim at 1 and 2-star could sometimes like win you and streak you most of the game, especially with something like Unleash the Beast. 3-star Hecarim was always hard to hit, but the strength of Hecarim was how strong he was in his 1 and 2 cost variation, or 1 and 2-star variations. So these nerfs are very good. I like these changes. I think that Hecarim was a little bit overtuned, and I think this might bring it down to like, you know, Hecarim reroll is still viable, but like I said, now you have to have a spot for it, because you can't just have Hecarim 1 with Asterix and it wins you all of stage 3 and most of stage 4, right? Like you can't have something crazy like that. Instead, it's going to be like, you know, you actually have to have Hecarims in order to play Hecarim carry primary. They're doing buffs to Jinx, so it seems mostly just like a base AD change and maybe like a little bit of the scaling. But the scaling looks like the same numbers, so I'm not exactly sure how big of a change this is. I felt like Jinx was in an okay spot. I tried to play Jinx reroll one time, and I think I went like 5th or 6th, but that's just because I didn't hit Jinx 3, and it felt like a little bit of a low roll, but it still felt stable even into like Kalista and like those really meta comps at the time of the patch. Obviously, I haven't played in like a week, so you know, take with a grain of salt. When I was trying stuff out, some of the boards were less optimized. I think the changes are good. Hopefully Jinx is like playable. They're kind of trying to address Sugarcraft a little bit here. Sugarcraft is weird because, like, you know, we'll talk about it when we get to Gwen, but these changes aren't like super Sugarcraft changes. Usually if you're playing Jinx primary, you're playing like a non-Sugarcraft board. It's very rare that you're playing Sugarcraft and Jinx as your primary. It's usually that, like, if you're playing Sugarcraft, you need to find Gwen, so you want to roll on 8 to find the Gwen. You don't want to be, like, spending all your gold on 7, not getting your 6 Sugarcraft. You kind of grief your whole game if you're playing towards the vertical Sugarcraft line. Because, like, you know, you can't reliably expect to hit Gwen in a timely manner rolling on 7. You probably have to, like, level to 8, and then you're probably not going to play Jinx 3. So this is more for, like, the Hunter Wukong Jinx, just to let you know. That's, like, my take on it. Katarina nerfs. This is the only thing that might hurt warriors a little bit. Katarina was a good fallback unit. If you didn't have items, or if you had, if you had AP items and you didn't have AD items, you can usually like itemize a Katarina too, and play around that a little bit. I don't know exactly how substantial these changes are, because Katarina was really fucking busted. I felt like Katarina at 2-star and 1-star was like eh, and then at 3-star all of a sudden it's like Jesus fucking Christ, my whole board is dead. So you know, 30% on the 3-star, I think it's a substantial change. But obviously I think Katarina gets you into these win cons, either if you're playing vertical fairy or if you're playing vertical warriors. So hopefully it's okay. We'll see how it goes. Like hopefully she's still usable on the boards. This change I don't like. So they're buffing Viger 3 again, back to like higher spell damage. Like they nerfed him because he was too strong. Now they're buffing him again. Like what they did is, first they nerfed him. He was broken, right? Then they nerfed him. Then they nerfed him again to nerf his 1 and 2-star because they realized that they made a mistake. Then they reverted that change, and now they're putting him in like the middle of the 2 nerfs, I think, just like a little bit more spell damage. It doesn't seem like that much. I felt like Viger was already in a good spot. If you had a good reroll spot for Viger, it was fine. The problem with Viger was that there was a lot of Honeymancy players, so it was really hard to hit Viger. And because of Callista was so stable on level 8 that if you had like any semblance of like the patch knowledge, it just wasn't a good idea to go for Viger because you didn't have enough time to hit the 3-stars, right? If the pace of the game slows down a little bit, that you can play like a 3-cost reroll. 3-cost reroll kind of feels like a 4-cost reroll when you're playing it, right? You expect to hit like a Viger 2, right? When you're playing a 3-cost reroll, you expect to hit a Viger 2 on like 4-1/4-2, and then like you hit Viger 3 on stage 5, right? It's similar to like a 4-cost, right? A 4-cost, you'll have 1 copy of them on 4-1/4-2 because you'll do your initial roll down, and you'll upgrade your whole board on stage 5, right? That's like the tempo. It's a very similar tempo to when you're playing around 4-cost, and the problem is because like there's 1-cost rerolls, and you have to then deal with the Callista board that is stable, that is way stronger than any other board with a 1-star version of Rakan and a 1-star version of Callista. You run into a problem that's like, okay, I'm going to lose every single fight. What do I do here? And that's why you just didn't have enough time to hit Viger 3. So, if the meta slows down enough that people are playing more 3-cost rerolls again, like similar to one of the other previous patches, then this will be very, very strong. Because I think that if somebody had a good Viger spot nowadays even, he still did a lot of damage. He's still top forward. I felt like it was fine. It was just the problem of like a little bit of gatekeeping, if that makes sense, because of the way the rounds kind of worked out. Wukong's getting a little buff. I felt like the change to Wukong kind of made him very, very like eh. Like you tried not to play him that much. They're giving him more starting armor, or passive bonus armor. So I think that might help out a little bit. So hopefully we'll see how that works out. Now Wukong doesn't scale like he did with Gargoyles. He like starts out with armor and then it decays over time. This also helps the Jinx board, right? We saw a Jinx buff and now we're seeing a Wukong buff. There might be that Jinx Wukong board coming up again or some variation of it. We'll keep tuned, you know, keep your eyes peeled for that one to show up again. Now Gwen changes. This is the big 4-cost champ change, right? This is like the crux of the patch. Is Gwen good now? Gwen was kind of weird, right? I think that the games when the set started, I liked Gwen as a unit because I felt like she was just very flexible. She didn't do that much, but she was a good +1 on your board because she was just like she was good with tank items, right? I talk about this a lot. Early Gwen was like really good with tank items. Then they did a whole rework for her where now she really wants to like cast and she does like a bunch of snip damage, but she fucking like hit one unit and then like ran away and she like never killed anything, and she was kind of just like useless. Like the best thing she did on the board was distract the entire board, and sometimes she would pop off, right? There were signs of Gwen being good. It's not like Gwen was always bad. Even in the current patch, right? I've lost games to people that had Gwens on their board and the Gwen popped off, right? It was just very RNG because of the way that she would dash around. Like sometimes she wouldn't kill a unit, she would dash away. but if she was able to kill a unit, like if you had enough damage, specifically like Gwen with Arcana was really cool, right? If you capped out your board really high and you had a Gwen too, then she actually was able to kill units and get the snips up, and then she would actually like be one-shotting shit. But anyways, I digress. They're updating the dash logic, so I'll read it out. So Gwen now dashes to the hex that would hit the most total targets, tie breaking to the hex distant to the most enemies. If her current target is outside her base dash range of the 3 hexes, she will now dash to the shortest distance to reach them rather than getting infinite dash range. That was like a big problem because a lot of times like she would target somebody and you would see Gwen dash like across the screen to somewhere that you didn't even want her to be. She might stay a little bit more localized now, which is really nice. And she does have like a 2 hex range, so she does hit multiple units, so you can get a lot of value off of it. And what they're doing is they're also decreasing the snip damage very, very slightly. I don't know how these changes are going to actually affect things. Gwen is kind of like a weird unit, right? I'll explain Sugarcraft in general just a little bit. So let's talk about Sugarcraft, right? Sugarcraft is a scaling comp, right? I'll write scales, right? Sugarcraft scales. So when you have Sugarcraft units, they have to be inherently a little bit weaker than all the other units because they're Sugarcraft. Right? That's just part of it, right? I'm never upset. Like, for example, Rumble. Take Rumble, for instance. Is Rumble a better tank than Blitzcrank? Would you rather have a Rumble 3 on your board or a Blitzcrank 3? Like, I feel like it's very obviously I would want to have a Blitzcrank 3. Now, obviously, Blitzcrank is a little bit overtuned in my opinion, but I'm just trying to point out that, like, Rumble wasn't the best tank, right? And that was fine, because if you ever played 6 Sugarcraft, which I played a bunch, when you have 6 Sugarcraft and you get max stacks, Rumble becomes a fucking tank. He gets so much durability from the 6 Sugarcraft scaling that he's fucking unkillable. And a 3-star Rumble is like the best tank in the game almost when you have 6 Sugarcraft. Maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but he is really fucking good. And it's the same with like Gwen, right? If you get to 6 Sugarcraft Gwen and you get max stacks on Gwen, it's a lot of investment, obviously, and you don't have time for that investment in the current state of the game, and that's what makes it really hard. But the problem is, like, let's say Rumble was like a Giga tank right now, or let's say Gwen was a Giga unit right now. Then it makes it so that if you have Sugarcrafted, she's going to become that much better, right? Like, if she already does, like, let's say she's already, like, the most damaging 4 cost. Then if you put in Sugarcraft and she scales, it's going to be broken, and everybody's going to want to play Gwen, and then it's going to be a fucking shit show. So Gwen has to have, like, a little bit of a balance where she has to be slightly weaker in order to compensate for the fact that she's Sugarcraft, right? So it sounds really weird. So that's what I mean. I don't know how these changes are, because if these changes make her so that she's as good of a damage dealer as any other warrior, then she's going to be broken because Sugarcraft is going to kick in. There's like this awkward balancing that you have to do. Like Rumble's in a good spot because Rumble with 6 Sugarcraft is like the main tank for Sugarcraft and does the job really well. But Rumble outside of that is a little bit But then, like, you know, obviously there's Hero Augment, Rumble, and other variations. There's, like, stuff that can work out like that. So that's what I'm always worried about whenever I read about these Gwen changes. I felt like the earliest version of Gwen was probably the best, and she just needed a little bit of a damage buff. And I feel like all these reworks to Gwen are just stressing me out. So we'll see how it goes. I'm a big Gwen supporter. Like I said, I would love to just play Sugarcraft every game. I said at the beginning of the set that was the thing I was most excited for, was to play Sugarcraft this set, and it has been miserable constantly, and I've lost so much LP trying to play Sugarcraft just to get a glimmer of happiness in my life, and no. So, you know, we'll see. Hopefully she's good, but just be aware of that, right? If you see Gwen being good outside of Sugarcraft, then she's gonna be giga broken if you have Sugarcraft. That's like the main thing that I wanted to like point out. Anyways, we're gonna go to 5 costs. So Briar, I don't remember, like, this bug was weird because sometimes she just fucking died, and then other times people are saying that she's like fucking goes crazy. Like, she's no longer unstoppable in her frenzy form. I think that's like dealing with stun. I don't know how specific it was because I don't recall her ever not getting stunned by like Chrono and other stuff. It's just hard to keep track of because she jumps around so much. So that's a bug fix that I think overall is a nerf, but like not really. I don't know when this bug occurred because I couldn't figure it out myself. So that's fine, whatever. Just be aware that now sometimes, like, you know, she was basically able to keep going when she should have stopped, but now she will stop sometimes, so that's good. Mana buff to Nora and Yumi is actually really massive because the mana that Nora has is the same mana that Yumi does when she casts. So this actually makes her like, Nora was already like a really good +1. You just would put her on to buff one of your main units to do more damage. So now getting a mana buff, it's like strictly a buff that makes her really viable. And then they're decreasing the true damage that Morgana was doing. Morgana was kind of annoying. But it's mostly like Morgana 2. This seems like a substantial change because like Morgana damage was really massive, or a massive part of what she was doing, especially if you gave her like sustaining items like a Bloodthirster. Sometimes that would, you just find yourself in a position like that. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. But I think that, you know, some change to Morgana. She was very aggressively played, was pretty good. Item changes. So Moonstone Renewer, the support items, that's the Moonstone Gem thing. It's been the best support item for a while right now. So they're doing a small change, especially the late game shielding getting nerfed by a lot. That's actually a good change. It's one of the best support items, and a lot of times it's very overbearing, especially if somebody has it. So we're down to see some adjustments there. And then these are like the Radiant items. So Radiant items I don't really care about. Like, you know, it's very rare. And usually it's very locked to like whatever unit you want to play. So Demon Slayer was a little bit weaker. They're buffing it. Equinox, I don't even know what that is. Rosethorn Vest? Is Rosethorn Vest the red one? Like, I don't, whatever, you know, cool. This is the only one that I think is a little bit weird. I should double check. If Rosethorn Vest is the, oops, I didn't mean to zoom in on Mort Dog. If Rosethorn Vest is the Sunfire, I don't think it is, but if it's Sunfire Radiant, I think Sunlight Cape is Sunfire Radiant. Whatever one Sunfire Radiant is, Sunfire Radiant has one of the best stats in the game. It just has so much utility, and it gives enough tanky stats that it's really good. So one of these two is probably buffing Sunfire Radiant. That was already one of the best Radiant items in the game. That's the only one that I disagree with here, right? I don't think that one should have been buffed. It should have maybe been nerfed, if anything. I don't know enough about it because like I don't have first-hand experience, right? So all my opinions on these are second-hand, looking at numbers instead of like trying it out myself, because how many times have I played each of these Radiant items, right? Very rarely. So, you know, it's hard for me to say. Augments. So Flexible Prismatic, now it grants a health on away board. So this was one of the there's lots of bugs that happen with ghost boards in TFT, so this is just addressing that. They're nerfing the HP a little bit, which I think is fine. Flexible Prismatic was kind of weird. I didn't have much experience playing it because I didn't play that much this patch. But the couple times people had it, they just went 8th, so like I don't even know if it's any good. I think it's pretty good. And then High Horsepower, they're buffing it a little bit because it basically acts and is really fucking bad. So maybe now it's a little bit better. This is the type of situation where like the fairy buffs might not matter, or fairy nerfs might not matter, because if you have something like High Horsepower and High Horsepower is viable, stuff like that will still make the fairy line very strong. Item ladder was re-enabled. That's a silver augment, if I'm not mistaken, that gives you the upgraded item. I thought this one was really fun, so I'm glad for that. Hopefully I can take it sometime. Pillar of Flame. Now, I'm pretty sure Pillar of Flame was bugged. This is the Shen Hero augment. They're buffing it a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm pretty sure in the bug fixes it says the Shen Hero augment is getting bug fixed. The stats on it were fucking miserable. Like, not even close. It was averaging like a 6.0, right? It was one of the worst augments in the game. And I'm pretty sure it was bugged, so I told people when I was streaming, and I told people in the other reviews, I said, hey, watch out, just don't play it. The stats are really bad. It doesn't matter how many Shens you have. It probably doesn't work. It's probably worse than another augment, and it was. So they're buffing it. Maybe now we'll see Shen Hero a little bit more. Who knows? Let's figure it out. Royal Guard. They're nerfing Royal Guard a little bit. Now, Royal Guard is the fairy augment. I just want to point it out. Like, this was something I was saying before. Royal Guard and Fairy Crown, all of these, they did really well in the stats, but as the patch has gone on and challenger players have been optimizing, like, you know, the better players, obviously, you'll start to notice that Royal Guard and Fairy Crown are actually not that strong. It was just that Callista and Rakan were very strong, and a lot of the time it's kind of like has a thing in the stats where like the lower the elo, the higher Royal Guard would average. And it wasn't because Royal Guard was particularly broken. It was just that, you know, declaring on 2-1 that you're playing Fairy and other people pivoting besides it and you being able to hit your Fairy units was, like, enough to make it very strong, right? So, like, that's something that, like, so this change doesn't really matter because the augment itself wasn't really good anyways, right? If you're trying to optimize your board and you were playing Callista, you didn't click Royal Guard. It didn't really do anything. There were other augments that were much better for you. It's the same as like last set. There was an augment called Grim Harvest, which was like, you know, it would just like make you play Reapers. And Reapers was so broken that everybody was taking Grim Harvest all the time, and it had really good stats. But then it found out that Grim Harvest was bugged, and it wasn't even working properly. So everybody's like, well, how come it does so well in the stats? And it's like, well, it's because, like, you know, just saying that you're playing Reapers is enough to make that augment good, because you're playing the comp that is the #1 comp in the set right now. So having an augment that's like, you know, undeniably forcing you to play the best comp will on average make you play better because you're playing a broken comp, right? And that's similar to like Royal Guard. It's not bugged or anything, but I'm saying like these changes don't really matter because I don't think you should have been taking it anyways. So it's like, it's almost like an unwarranted nerf in a way. Spider Queen getting buffed a little bit. They're trying to make the hero augments like somewhat playable. They're a little bit over nerfed. I don't like hero augments that much. I felt like there was a guy who took Spider Queen when he had Shapeshifter +1, and I felt like he fucking popped off. Like, he was fucking strong as shit. So it's like, I'm down to like not have that. Winter is coming. This one was very strong. This is the one that they changed it from the dummy with the Eternal Winter to having the Wolf. They're nerfing it a little bit. That's fine. I think it was a little bit overtuned. Witchy Wallop, a little bit of a buff. Same, they're just trying to go through all the hero augments. And then Zap Attack, the one that was doing really well because Honeymancer is really well. They're changing the damage from every 4 seconds to every 5 seconds. On average, in a long fight, that might make it so you have 1 to 2 less damage intervals, right? Because if a fight lasts 30 seconds, 30 divided by 4 versus 30 divided by 5, right? You know, it's not that crazy, but it's not like, you know, this is something that matters a lot more early game rather than late game. The early game fights typically last longer. The late game fights, when everybody has swollen boards with all these like insane units and upgraded 5 costs and blah blah blah, usually the fights last a lot longer. So this makes it a little bit less stable, which is good. So this is a good change, right? It doesn't make it unclickable, I don't think. I think it's still something you can click, especially because Honeymancy itself isn't that nerfed. Like, there's no strict Blitzcrank nerfs or 5 Honeymancy nerfs. It just makes it so that, like, hey, make sure you have a good spot. Don't just, like, close your eyes and click it, right? That's the idea here that we're trying to teach and have around on this channel. Charms. So, new charm. Conjure support. You gain a support anvil. 25 gold is a lot. This is very strong, by the way. A support anvil is basically like getting a plus gold augment, right? So I think this is going to be really annoying to deal with, but at the same time, I think it's fun because it's a lot of gold, right? If you're stage 5 and you have 25 gold, you're in like a win more situation. It gives you something to spend your gold on, right? A lot of times better than going 9 now. You might want to stay on level 8 just to have money for some of these charms just in case you hit it. They also made Study Hard, so this is like similar like the coin flip, except you're gaining EXP instead of gold. But it's like in the same stacking way, and it's only on stage 3 and 4, which is a little bit weird, in my opinion, because 3 and 4 you kind of don't care too much about XP at that point. But it's only 1 gold, so this might be like an insta click, you know, yeah, just fuck it, because 1 gold for 2 XP is basically like a 1 for 2, because EXP costs 1 gold per EXP. So pretty cool. Sorry, I need to keep playing my music so you don't have to just hear my voice. There's something actually appealing to have in the background. Then they removed Desperate Plea. That's the one that like basically lets you live an extra turn. Yeah, fuck it. That shit was ass. And this is the big one, right? Like, oh my god, this is the best change that I've ever seen in a patch history. I'm joking, but this is the best part of the patch for me. This shit was so fucking annoying. Now, I don't know if you guys like this shit. I don't care. I fucking hated it. Like, I would look at somebody's board, they were playing Fairy, and then all of a sudden I look back at their board a turn later and they have 9 Fairy. It's like, what the fuck happened? Like, how the fuck did they get 9 Fairy? Because this shit was so, like, it wasn't easy to hit, but it was, like, easy enough to hit that, like, out of nowhere, like, somebody would just, like, scam and have, like, a fucking insane board. There'd be a guy going 8th, and then all of a sudden, like a guy going 8th, you know, contesting Callista. I look back at his board and he has fucking 9 Fairy out of nowhere. This was so annoying, especially in like Trainer Sentinels and like anything where you got spats. Like if there's a spat carousel, it's like it made it so easy to hit a vertical, right? I was playing a game one time where I was playing 8 Witchcraft. I was trying to play 8 Witchcraft, and there's another guy that had no Witchcraft units and no Witchcraft spats. He literally just takes Witchcraft Emblem, and the next turn he fucking finds a Conjure Spatula and has 8 Witchcraft before me. and I literally got griefed my comp because like it was I hate it so much. It's so annoying because it's like it just ruins the game. It feels like at any random point somebody just like gets an extra +1 spot on their board, and I'm just like, what am I doing here? Right? It's like, why am I playing this game that I tried so hard for somebody to randomly just have like a vertical trait out of nowhere because of this charm, right? It was so like, oh. And you can't even like predict it. It's like you have to constantly be scouting or like reading everybody's charms, because like, and I don't even know the names of the charms by heart or what they look like by heart. I don't have that memorized. So it was just like a constant stress. It's like, oh, did I miss something? Let me look. Do I have to roll now? Do I have to roll this turn? Do I have to, okay, let me see if anybody got a spat. It's like, okay, nobody got a spat. Okay, maybe I can read it. It was so hard to play around. So I'm just glad they're gone. Maybe they'll bring them back. They still have the give a random emblem. That one's less of a problem because the random emblem, it's random. It's very hard to bink or like hit the exact thing that you need. So I think having that is like a good balance of fun and exciting, but still like not super RNG. Because if I get griefed by somebody like buying a random emblem and it hits the exact one that they need, it's like at that point it's like, okay, yeah, like God didn't want me to win this one for sure. Anyways, Tremors. Tremors were like the most broken charm in the game. Every 10 seconds, great change. I would even make it worse, right? I would make it every like 11 seconds or something. Every 10 seconds, I don't know. I would rather it be even worse. And then they re-enabled these ones that I think were bugged, which is fine. So charm changes, overall pretty good, right? They dealt with the bad ones. They added 1 or 2 more fun ones. I'm okay with that. Bug fixes. Without bitching too much, I'm going to say something. We're going to read through all these just to make sure. I did not see the 1 or 2 bugs that were the ones that I want to quit the set because of, right? I made a video on it already. If you saw the video, you saw it. If you didn't see the video, you can go try and find it. It should be easy to find, right? I was miserable because I didn't enjoy the last patch that much, and I lost like 50 LP. I think I was 1 game away from Masters 3 separate times, right? I'm usually Masters by now, but each of the times I got griefed by some shit that wasn't my fault, right? And it was so fucking annoying because one time, like you know, I lost because of like bad, like, I don't want to get into it, but like the 3rd time was what broke me last time, and that's why I did a week of variety streaming. I just streamed like Pokemon and Jump King and all sorts of other stuff because it just wasn't fun, because I literally just lost the game because of a bug. Like I went from a spot where if I converted it, I could have even played for first because I would have outcapped everybody. I lost like 9 HP because the round didn't end. There's a bug in the game. It usually happens with AP lines, by the way. That's the only thing I know, but there's no way to really know about it or play around it, and they have no fucking clue. I don't know, maybe they do have a clue of how to fix it, but like it's not fixed yet, and it doesn't look like it's on this list. So I'm crossing my fingers that they missed it and that it is fixed. I'm gonna keep my eyes vigilant, and maybe it'll be patched or something if it's not on this list. But you can just lose the round even if you win. I won by 3 units and I lost a bunch of HP, and then I fought into an Ash reroll and I lost that by 2 because it's just like my bad, right? So it's just like that not being fixed. It's like, bro, the game doesn't function properly. Like what is going on? Like I would prefer like rank be disabled for a week and fix that bug, because like it happens to a lot of people. It might not have happened to you yet. You're lucky, right? You're lucky that you didn't get your game griefed, right? If you're climbing and you're proud of yourself climbing, go ahead. But it's like, bro, it's like it's so fucking miserable, because it happened to me. I lost 50 LP, right? It's like, it's not okay. Anyways, let's go through the bug fixes, because we'll read the other ones that they're fixing, because these ones are obviously more important. Akali now uses her Tan's attacks. This was the Akali bug I was talking about, right? With Runans. Sometimes she like doesn't properly attack, but sometimes she does. So whatever. That's a good change. Makes Akali a little bit more consistent. The Briar, we already talked about this one. Pillar of Flame. So now Pillar of Flame will now cast at a further range if no targets are in range. I think maybe that was his problem, that he just didn't cast properly if there weren't targets near him. So that's a good change. And then they're fixing another bug with Pillar of Flame. So this is the Shen Hero augment that it works on away boards as well. It was just very bad. So maybe these with the buffs will make it playable now. Who knows? We'll see. Yuumi now properly grants attack damage to have ability power to AD casters like Varus or Ezreal. That's pretty good, right? Sometimes like you would put your Yuumi, like often you were playing Yuumi with AP lines because she worked better with like a mage setup. But now, especially with the changes to her mana, you can just play her as like an extra spot, right? If you level to 9 and you're looking for somebody to put on your board, Nora Yumi is a really good option, and she also properly works on AD units, which is great. Draconic Mastery no longer counts takedowns on PvE rounds. This is something I made a Draconic Mastery board yesterday, and I didn't talk about this because I didn't know if it was bugged or not. I didn't think it was worthwhile saying. Knowing that that's a bug, yeah, that was kind of broken. So basically, like, your PvE kills would count towards your Draconic Mastery. So when you kill like 5 wolves, it would be like +5 on the stacks. This actually makes it a little bit less reliable now, because that's where you got like a lot of free stacks, because like, you know, killing Krugs, killing wolves, killing birds, that's like, you know, that's like +12, right, to counting towards your 60. I still think Draconic Mastery is broken. I actually wish Draconic Mastery got a bit of a nerf. But you know, maybe that's just me. I felt like Draconic Mastery was like beating Callista boards, and Callista board was like the biggest board in the set, right? I played it from a really bad spot, and I still got top 4, so I kind of confirmed my suspicions that if you have a good spot for it, like if you start the game with a Nomsy and you can streak, it's like a free win almost. So I don't know, I guess, sure, but maybe this makes it a little bit less consistent, so we'll see how that goes. Fairy Augments will now correctly need the trait to be shown on 3242. That's just like an offering issue, which, you know, maybe that appeared. I wouldn't be able to tell you. Pillar of Flame requires Bastion to be activated to appear on 3-2. That's just something you want to know if you're tailoring, right? So it's not just a matter of having Shen in. You should also make sure, well, Shen I think would activate it, but if you don't have Shen and you're thinking about Pillar of Flame, make sure you have Bastion in on 3-2. They fixed a number of bugs around 4-star units. These aren't 4-cost units, these are 4-star units. Some of the 4-star units, if you hit one, weren't able to put an item on them. Or 3 items on them properly, so that's a good change if you're going for that. If you're in that type of spot, go for it. That was something that's added last patch. What the Forge and Angerage will no longer transform Tactician's Shield or Cape. I never had that issue, so by all means, good change. Fixed a 5-star carousel that was giving 3 Tactician's Crown. This was very annoying. I think like a lot of people were very upset with this. Basically, if you're offering 3 Tactician's Crown, it's just so much extra value, because it's basically like giving somebody a whole extra level. Tactician's Crowns are very, very strong. That's the one that gives you like a +1 spot or a fawn, however you want to describe it. And usually when there's a Tactician's Crown, it would show all Tactician's items. That's how it was in the past. So that way, like, you know, if the carousel has a fawn, everybody gets a fawn at least. So even if it's not super helpful to you, you at least get a fawn, right? Because it's really fucking a slap in the face that somebody just gets a fawn, right? And then you pick like not your 3rd, 4th pick or something, or it's not on your side, and you get like a fucking item or a component. It's like, what the fuck was that? So if you have something that powerful, you need all of the items to be that powerful. So that's the change. So that's a good bug fix. The emblem variant for Arcana now counts Tactician's Cape and Shield twice in addition to Crown. So I don't like this, but whatever. I feel like it shouldn't even count these fucking things, but whatever. We'll see how it goes. Reforging a unit with 3 different Tacticians item no longer returns nothing. Alright. Flexible now grants health on away boards. That's just, you know, bug fixes that we talked about before. Wukong shield duration with spin to win now correctly 2 seconds instead of 0.3 seconds. This was a bug with it. Spin to win, they fixed one bug with it, and it still wasn't doing well in the stats, and I said, it's probably still shit because of some issues. So yeah, it was also bugged, so that got fixed. Mordekaiser with Mage Emblem is now mana lock for the correct duration. I think Mordekaiser with Mage Emblem was bugged that he did more damage. I didn't even know that. Like, I think he just didn't, he was mana locked too, like, I think this is a nerf to him with Mage Emblem, but of course he was already pretty good. Fix some interaction between Over-Encumbered and the Polymorph Charm. Yeah. And then Jacksho, the Protean, now directly indicates it gives 40 bonus damage on the back row. So that's just something, it's just like a verbiage to match what the item is, which makes sense. Anyway, so this was the total patches, the total patch information. So what is my take on this patch, right? Just as a closing remarks to send you off on your merry day. I'm not super excited about this patch for 2 reasons. Number 1, the main bug that I think is the most tilting experience that I've had in my life playing a game. You know, call me overreacting, call me whatever. Wait till it happens to you and then let me know about it, right? Like that's all I can say, right? Like if it doesn't happen to you and you have an opinion on the bug that I was talking about, you know, I don't care, right? Let it happen to you. Let you put yourself in a spot where you're insanely fucking strong and trying to win out and rank up and do well in the game and actually putting in effort, and then just get slapped in the face by like the game not behaving properly. So like that bug not getting fixed is really sad for me, but I understand that as TFT devs, they might need the time to fix it. Obviously, I just wish there was some level of transparency with it, right? Like, I'm telling you guys about the bug. If you're finding out about this bug because of me, that's a problem, right? I'm not a big YouTuber, right? I don't have a big reach to explain to people, hey, there's this thing, be warned, right? I feel like stuff like that, like, I understand some bugs, like if it's like you can get abused by the bugs, and then like, you know, people cheat and stuff like that, so you have to be like silent about some stuff. I can understand that mentality, but like, come on guys, like this is not one of those, in my opinion. This is like, hey, there's a problem with the fucking fight RNG, like, hello? But besides that, I feel like there's a lot of buffs to low cost units as opposed to like balancing the high cost units. So I feel like it might just turn into like, you know, similar to how last patch started where it was like mostly reroll, and then like people figured out that Callista was really broken, and then everybody was just playing Callista, and then, you know, aside from Callista, people were playing Varus. Varus didn't really get touched at all. Like, he dodged a real bullet here. Varus has been gaining a lot of popularity. I think Varus might end up being like the new Callista. So stay tuned for that. Right? I think that the same way Callista was very, very contested, Varus is like budget Callista. It wasn't as good as Callista boards, but there was a lot of different Varus boards, especially with 6 Blaster, that just deleted boards and won lobbies very easily, especially if you're ahead. The main difference between Callista and Varus is that with Varus, you need a lot of gold because you want to also find Smolder eventually. So it was more of like a high roller comp, right? Like if you win streaked all of stage 2 and you had a lot of HP and a lot of gold, then playing Varus, you basically just like deleted everybody. You won the game, right? It was like a win more type of comp. So we'll see how that goes. I'm keeping my eyes peeled for it. Hopefully Sugarcraft is good as well, but I'm not sure about that either because obviously could run into some problems with you know, the tempo of the lobby, right? Like if there's a lot of reroll comps, like for example, if Ahri reroll is meta and Seraphine reroll becomes meta, and Zoe, because of Ahri, is back, so there's another 1 cost reroll. If Ziggs is still good, if Ashe and multi-strikers are still good because those didn't get nerfed at all, you run into a situation where like you can't cash out Sugarcraft, right? You won't be able to get the cash outs because the game will be over anyways, right? You either high rolled enough that you won the game without cashing out Sugarcraft, or you don't cash out Sugarcraft and you're not strong enough to stabilize, right? That's the problem with Sugarcraft right now. You want the meta to be a little bit like more delayed in terms of more people playing around 4 cost to give you the HP and the time to get those higher cash outs to make it like a viable win con, right? And we saw that earlier in the set, right? Earlier in the set when people didn't really know what they were doing, a lot of times Sugarcraft is really strong right at the start of a set, right? So, right at the start of the patch. So I expect on Wednesday, you might notice that Sugarcraft is really strong right at the start. It doesn't mean that Sugarcraft is broken. You have to pay attention because a lot of times Sugarcraft is really good right at the start of the patch because nobody knows what they're doing. So the games go longer because everybody has like these ragtag boards. You know, the fight isn't super swollen. You get like longer games, and that's what happens sometimes. That's what happened this current patch, right? Sugarcraft was like one of the best augments to take at the start of this patch, and then like, you know, it just turned into fucking garbage by like, you know, day 5 because you just didn't have a chance to cash out anymore because people figured out that you can just play Callista and then you just died. And then Gwen also kind of sucked. But anyways, hopefully that was a good patch review. If you're excited about the patch, by all means, make sure you play more. I'm going to play tomorrow. I'm taking a break today because I'm super tired. So I'm going to be taking a break. And then tomorrow, I'm actually going to be returning to streaming and playing the patch. So yeah, hopefully we don't have any other problems. And it should be fun. So, you know, the week of variety is over. Maybe we'll have variety like once a week on my Twitch channel. But by all means, if you want to stop by and say hi on the Twitch channel, you can stop by. You can join the Discord as well. And like and subscribe to help out with the channel. All of those things help support me. So by all means, please do so if you like my videos. Thank you for watching and hopefully have a great day.